Okay, we're back with on mental toughness. So this is from the first article, which is from Martin Seligman. The end of the book had the interview with Martin Seligman, so I've made a video on that one as well. But this is really interesting stuff. So Martin Seligman is a psychologist, and he's referred to as the doctor of, like the founder of positive psychology. So he realized that when we kind of open the door, like give people permission to expand and to grow, even after really intense events, that people will, like if we give them some steps and what to do after really intense events in business or in life. So he's worked with teachers in the army and corporate, and so he's worked in many different environments, and it's worked as long as you give people the permission and the steps to learn and grow after big events, right? So he thought that he had the, if you want to say prescription to failure, or a reaction to failure, can be one of two things. You can either learn and grow, or you can be paralyzed. And sometimes people are both, or one or the other, depending on what it is. But he is giving us the right to say, hey, really, we can fail at something, but after that, we can learn and grow, or we can just stay stuck. Those are our two options. Neuroscience-wise, we have this neurogenesis, so we have an ability for the nerves to keep growing and learning. You know this. You've seen somebody trying a new sport. You've seen, I'm trying pickleball. That's the latest thing. So I'm getting a teeny bit better each month. So it's, why am I getting better? Because I'm working at it and I'm trying, and my brain obviously is remembering some of the plays. So as adults, even, we can learn new skills. So don't give up. We still can learn new skills as adults. So what Martin Seligman is talking about is about post-traumatic growth. We hear a lot about post-traumatic stress, and what he says, he studied people like who, after a really serious event, who learns from the event and keeps growing after a really big traumatic event, whether it be in business or in your home life or what have you. He said, the key, what he found in his research, was optimism. And I heard a great definition of optimism is just the ability to set a goal and take a few steps toward it. You just believe that you can grow, which is really cool. So in 1960, he said there was some study, he was reviewing the literature, that 1960, they defined something called learned helplessness. And there was some horrible studies with, dogs getting shocks, and they would open the cage door and they wouldn't leave. Like after a while, they just wouldn't leave the shocks because they just stopped trying to help themselves and get out of the cages. I don't agree with any of these studies, but this is what they called learned helplessness. And then in 1975, there was another Dr. Hiroto who used noises on people, and the same thing, like they could leave after there was a loud noise. Some of them were able to leave, like loud noise, they were able to leave. Some were kind of stuck and they had to hear it. And then they did another experiment, and once they were in the group that was kind of stuck, they wouldn't try again. They would just stop trying to help themselves. And so that was the term that was used, learned helplessness. So he saw that about 30% of the people never got the learned helplessness. And so he said, what was different about those groups? And it turned out they were optimistic. And so that's been, persistently true in different studies, this definition of optimism. Actually, I gave a talk recently at a meeting called the American College of Healthcare Executives, and a woman came up to me after the talk and said she doesn't think she's an optimist, she thinks she's a realist, and that she's really worried about the youth and their behavioral patterns, and she didn't feel optimistic about it. And I was telling her my definition of optimism that I just read, was because I think it's very true, and it could be very uniform, and I think maybe people will understand. Maybe they're more optimistic than they think. Because I said, well, hey, you're at this lecture. Why are you here at this lecture? Are you trying to learn new strategies? And there must be some optimism that you can learn something. And so we had a little chat about that. But that was interesting to say she was a realist, and so she didn't think things could change. But there she was learning things. So we'll see where she lands, if that's a difference. I mean, I think you can still be realistic, but you can be optimistic in that you can set a goal and take some steps toward hitting that goal, right? Okay, so what Dr. Seligman discovered in some of his research is that the ones that never got learned helplessness were optimistic. And they interpreted setbacks as temporary or local just to them or changeable. So yes, there are setbacks, but they saw that they weren't, 100% in everything, that there were opportunities. It was only temporary. It was only right in maybe in their office or in their area. It wasn't that it happened to everyone, and that it was something they could adjust. And he ran a program or designed a program that's called the Penn Resiliency Program that was out of UPenn. It was around 2010. And the directors of that program are Kieran Resvich and Jane Gilman. They're the ones that train teachers in this resiliency and post-traumatic growth, and directly teaching how to be more optimistic. And when the teachers were more optimistic, they tested the kids as well, and the kids had less depression and anxiety when the teachers had more ways to share optimism with the kids, which was pretty cool. And then he's also the one that brought this to the Army. So the Army put 40,000 people through resiliency training. So again, to share one-on-one, they did a 10-day training with their, I forget what level person they trained in the Army, but they trained them for 10 days on this, how personal and professionally, how to keep growing and learning, and to share with them about post-traumatic growth rather than post-traumatic stress, and ways to build personal resiliency, which is really cool. And so it really helped to change the outcome of their group. So when the teachers knew what to do and how to share optimism or resiliency training, post-traumatic growth training, it worked for the team. So as a leader, I think it's something that we can all tap into, that we have the power to learn something ourselves, and then it'll just naturally be shared the way we share things with our teams, which is pretty cool. So we all have that power to learn and keep building our own skills, right? So because it will, we all have, neuroscience-wise, we all have a synchrony with other people. We know that we share emotions. Like, can you imagine walking into a meeting and being really crabby, and everyone was saying hi and good morning and how was your weekend, and you walk in and you slam everything down, and you can see everyone kind of looks at you quickly and quiets down and is at alert, and so we know emotionally we influence each other right away. So if there's ways that we can build our skills, like they're suggesting, that Dr. Seligman is suggesting, that we can look at failures or challenges as either something to learn and grow from or something to be paralyzed from. And that being optimistic simply means, we're set a goal and we're going to try to hit it. It doesn't mean we hit everything and we are perfect at our outcomes, but it means that we tried, right? So that's pretty cool. So optimism isn't 100% perfection. No one has said perfection in any of these, like top 10 HBR must reads. Okay. So I'm Dr. Mary Rensel. I run a monthly membership for leaders. So I share a lot of resources each month with leaders, workshops and challenges, so that we can really get some new strategies into our toolkit. So that, again, because the literature really suggests that supporting the leader will have amazing effects on the teams. So come on in. It's called Leadership Lift. If you have any questions, just DM me or email me, thebrainfresh@gmail.com, thebrainfresh@gmail.com. And I'd love to answer your questions. Okay? You got this, guys.